on the surface of it all, this looks like yet another one of these Dells. I've had one of these before, a Precision 390. It stopped working, and I got rid of it. This one I think is a little bit different. It's actually got a floppy drive in it. This one says Core 2 Extreme. I have no idea what that actually is supposed to mean. But what we're going to do with this, you can see I made preparation here. I've installed another drive, kind of haphazardly, but hey, it works, don't judge. Put that in there, and I've also put two 1 terabyte drives that I'm still thinking about operating in RAID. I might run them in a software RAID 1. Haven't really decided yet. Or I might run them independent, because the plan for this is to build what's called a Proxmox backup server. I have two Proxmox VE hosts. The backup server will be an easy way, or will allow me an easy way to back up the virtual machines that are running on those hosts. Not even going to pull out the modem or the FireWire card that's in it. Just going to leave that. Only thing I had to really do was add the SATA cable and the Molex to SATA adapter. I was going to originally just pull off the optical drives, but it turns out the optical drives are IDE. I'm kind of surprised to see that in a system this new, but I don't know what that video card is. Invariably it's in there because this had something with a crappy DMS59 connector on it. So it's just some random video card, nothing special. It's got the PS2. No onboard video, it would be right there if it had it. But it does have parallel serial and all the usual stuff. It's got a COA for Windows XP Professional X64. But obviously we're not going to run that on here. I've not really had a lot of experience with Windows XP X64 edition. And I'm not talking about the Titanium edition either. There is a difference. But I'm going to go ahead and put the cover back on this, and we'll actually power it up and see if it works. Okay, now I bet if there's anything wrong with this, it'll be the CMOS battery. Alright, yep, look like the CMOS battery is dead. Core 2 quad at 2.66 gigahertz with a 1066 FSB. I'm not sure what that actually is. It's not the, it might be a Q6700. Honestly. I know the 6600 is 2.4 gigahertz, but quad core non-hyper-threaded. 8 gigs of RAM, which is pretty much the maximum that it's ever going to see anyway. Yeah, that battery is dead, so I'm going to have to replace that. 250 gig, that'll be our boot drive. There's nothing fancy about it. And then our two serial ATA drives are there. Of course, our two parallel ATA drives. Both of which are working, which is kind of amazing. Smart reporting, I'll turn that on. I'm going to actually set this up to my liking here, and then I'll see if I can find a battery from something and go ahead and replace it. Alright, here we are with our new USB. We're going to do the console because I don't have the mouse hooked up. Now, last time I did this, it didn't work. That was with Proxmox VE on a system that I know had some memory problems at the time, so hopefully this will function. Oh, I have no Ethernet. Hold on a minute. Okay, as you can see, I've taken a different tactic to this because that machine, for whatever reason, won't boot it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this from this system and put it into that one. So I'm going to install it here and throw it in there. Now, somehow I think that's going to fail spectacularly as well because I think this is installing in EFI mode, and that doesn't have EFI. So I guess we'll find out. Now, I don't know about this. I've got green video. And it's sitting here, blinking the light. But it hasn't locked up. So I don't know. Maybe it's just waiting for a network address that it's not going to get because the Ethernet is different. Okay, another day, another trial. We'll see if it'll work in this, which doesn't have EFI on it. I had to add a video card to this because I have to use the DVI because, believe it or not, I don't have an extra VGA cable over here. Or if I do, I can't find it. So, well, that stinks. So, tried this machine. Didn't work at all. In fact, it was even worse. I somehow ended up with a bootloader that wouldn't load from the drive. So put it in there, tried it, and still had the same problem. Guess what? Apparently, Proxmox backup server, maybe even Proxmox VE by extension, I don't know, does not like these GT520 cards. Neither one of them works. So it's not a card problem. But it'll work with this piece of crap GeForce 310 that I had laying around. So I guess it's just going to be stuck with that for a while because I'm going to have to find another card that's got a passive cooler on it. So obviously I don't want that to stay in there because number one, it's noisy. And number two, I don't think that fan is going to last very long anyway. But I guess now I can put the computer back together now that I know what's actually wrong with it. What a pain. Oh, I replaced the battery again, too, because apparently the battery that I put in there before was also dead. So that's nice. One thing I'm curious about, actually, is whether or not the installer would run on this now that I've changed the video card, but I'm not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. It's already installed. I'm not screwing around with it anymore. Listen to that fan. Sounds like crap. So I'm going to have to configure the BIOS now. Keyboard failure, which is wrong. Very demonstrably false. So, don't know what that's all about. Probably because a couple of keys don't work. Okay, I reconfigured, and I actually added the memory back that I pulled out of this. Because I'd forgotten that I had pulled some of the RAM because I thought that there was a RAM problem. And I'd never put it back. So I do have some more reconfiguring I need to do. Now watch, it probably won't work now. That fan sounds really bad. But, yeah. Let me log in here. Okay. Obviously, our network interface has changed. So, I'm going to have to rejig this and see what happens. Okay, that didn't change, but this should be online now. Alright, there we go. It's online. So what I need to do is I need to now put it on that shelf and hook it up to the network properly. Well, that stinks. It's just ever so slightly, like as in half an inch too girthy to fit in here. If I had another one of these Dells, it would fit in just fine. Go figure. It's this thing's fault. I'm probably going to replace that anyway with something else, but I don't know with what yet. So that's kind of a shame, but we can at least get it to work. I'm going to have to get another Ethernet cable too, because the only cable I've got that's long enough is the temporary cable I was using, which is a piece of junk. So I guess when I get the new machine to sit there, I'll deal with this. But I can at least power it on now. If I can remember which machine it was. So Anyway, power it on here. Oops, I gotta switch this KVM too. Where's the button? There we go. Make sure that the keyboard actually works, which it does. Alright. So we'll let that power on. And I'll switch over to the software side. Okay, here we are at the software side. Looks pretty similar to the Proxmox VE setup. It's just a little bit different because obviously this is not quite the same thing. It's organized a little bit differently. So I need to figure out the updates because I don't remember how that exactly is done. Alright, here we go. It's organized a little differently. So that looks fine. Updates. Repositories. This is what we want. I don't really care whether the subscription is valid or not. I want the no subscription repository. We'll add that. And the enterprise we will disable. So from there, we'll check again for updates. Okay. So yeah, there's quite a few updates here. We'll go ahead and we'll upgrade. And this is another case where we should reboot because I'm doing a kernel update, but I think I'll do that later. Alright, next step obviously is to look at the disks. I may change this later because I'm going to have a couple of 1.5 terabyte drives that will end up being in loose hands. But for the time being, I've got these two 1 terabytes here. I believe that both of these are in good health. I hope. That one looks okay. This one I'm not too sure about because I've never actually used it, but it looks okay to me. Yeah, that's fine. Seagates usually have this, like these kinds of values are usually pretty high. I don't know why, but they are. So these have been wiped already. So I'm going to go ahead and initialize these. And I could always use ZFS. That's probably the right way to do this, but I'm not going to bother. We're going to use standard ext4. We'll just call it what it should be. I have two Proxmox VE servers right now. Each one is going to get its own disk. So there's that. We'll do the same thing for the other one. So there now you can see both of those are there. And they've shown up down here. Now this tape backup option is kind of interesting. Unfortunately, I don't have any tape drives. It'd be kind of neat to experiment with that, but I'm not sure that I'm about to invest too much into this. So there you can see there's all of that. There's nothing on it right now. I don't think there's much that I need to do as far as reconfiguring any of this on the actual server. I think we're done with the server side. Okay, now for the client side, which it's still a server, but it's the client side of things. It's the thing that's going to be backed up. We can take this Proxmox backup server option. I'm not sure the ID really matters. I think you could call it anything you want. I believe that this would be the FQDN of the server, or the IP address. I'm going to put in the IP address. We'll put in the password as well. Alright, this nodes, I'm going to select that just because why not. Data store, this field is required. So let's put one in, call it this. Namespace is root. Fingerprint I'll leave alone. Backup retention, keep all. You see, it's preferred to configure retention directly, which is what we'll do. Encryption, we don't need that. We'll hit add, and we'll see what happens. Okay, a couple changes I've made. You can see here, this says something else. It's, I guess, the same thing that you log in with, which I found just by going down here. I've also added the fingerprint, which you can get by clicking the show fingerprint button. I don't know which one actually made it work, but now it's actually working, because here it is. So I suppose now the best option, you can see there's the storage. I'm just going to, as a test, just for this one, I'm going to back it up. We'll call it a snapshot. Doesn't need to be protected. Notification mode should be automatic. Doesn't really matter. So here's what we'll do. I'm just going to leave it at guest name since it should be pretty obvious what it is anyway. We'll hit backup. And then we'll let that run. Okay, so that backup's completed. There it is. Last thing I'm going to do is, well, not replication. We come up to data center, we go to backup. We'll add one. The schedule, we'll just do a monthly thing. Include everything. We'll call it snapshot mode. Send it on failure. Doesn't really matter. We'll enable it. Not going to worry too much about that. We'll create it. Retention. Let's see. How do we want to do the retention on this? That should be fine. Keep monthly. Let's say we keep the last two. And in addition to that, we'll keep the last one. I'm going to go ahead and run it. So there we go. So that's pretty much it. Configuring everything is basically like configuring everything else. So, and it looks like it's going to do it incrementally as well, which is good. That's what I want to see. So we'll let that do its thing, and then I'll set up the other one, but you don't really need to see that. That's pretty much it for this. So there's the start to finish configuration of a Proxmox backup server. Thanks for watching, and if you've got any comments, feel free to leave them below.